The topic that we will be dealing with in this chapter is what we fondly call coding decoding. As the name suggests, we need to use our common sense and logic to find out how to code something. What is coding? Anything that we do to conceal the real meaning in such a way that there is a set pattern for conversion is what is called coding. If you understand the logic of coding and retrieve the real meaning from the code, it is called decoding. Hence, the topic in this chapter will deal with applying logic to developing some ideas to code and decode. This is an important testing area in any aptitude test. It is interesting to note how these questions came into existence. All these questions are firmly rooted in the applications developed by military for communications. They could not communicate secrets openly. Therefore, they coded the messages in one form or the other and communicated those messages. The recipient would be given the logic to decode the message, and she will decode it and use it. In the modern world, the applications of coding and decoding happen mostly, in addition to the military, in e-commerce. With the advent of digital money came the issues of internet fraud also. To guard against these frauds, companies these days use different codes for different messages. Hence, these applications are widely in use in the modern world also. The story is similar in the case of these questions in the aptitude tests as well. These were the darlings of all aptitude question papers of the PSCs and the UPSC in the early days of aptitude testing. Sometime in the mid-90s, these questions made an exit from the question papers. But after 2005, these have made a strong comeback in the question papers and are now an integral part of aptitude question papers. Coding questions will want the candidate to first decode a sequence and then use that logic to code a different sequence. So there will be two steps to the process. There will be a set given where there will be a sequence and then a code. The student will have to find out how the sequence has been coded. The logic that leads to the code needs to be understood. Then the same logic needs to be applied to another sequence so as to reach the required code. Decoding questions need to be done in a manner where the decoding logic is applied and the answer is obtained. In the aptitude test scenario, a large number of the coding-decoding questions come under the alphabetical number logic. It means that the alphabets are given numbers according to their standing in the order. So A will be 1, B will be 2, etc. Z will be 26. If we are counting cyclically, A will come again after Z. So A will also have number 27 as its code, and Z will have number 52 as its code, and so on. After the alphabetical coding is done, all mathematical calculations can be done based on the number of the alphabets. Example: A plus B equals C. A is the first letter, B is the second. 1 plus 2 equals 3. C is the third letter. A into B equals B. A equals 1, B equals 2. 1 into 2 equals 2, which is B. Similarly, D divided by B equals B, and so on and so forth. Let us look at an example in the coding set of questions. Refer Q1 given in the slide. E is related to Y as A is related to what? E is the fifth letter of the alphabet. Y is the 25th letter. 25 equals 5 square. So Y equals E square. A is the first letter. 1 square equals 1. And the first letter is A itself. So the answer is A. Squaring of the numbers is being used here for the coding purposes. If economics is coded as CCEIMNOOS, what is the code for equator? A look at the question will tell us how to approach this question to get to the answer. First of all, we need to understand the relation between CCEIMNOOS and economics. Is there any apparent relation? Our understanding suggests that if economics is written in the alphabetical order, we will get CCEIMNOOS. Therefore, the answer would be equator written in the alphabetical order. So the answer is option 1, AEOQRTU. If education is coded as NOITACUDE, what is the code for student? The options given in such questions are very important because there will be only minor differences between the options, and therefore due care needs to be taken before marking the options. Read the options very carefully before you mark the answer. A closer look at the question will make it clear that the reverse of the word is the code for the word, and so the answer would be TNEDUTS. Look at one more question. Let us read it once again. In a code language, if the word South Africa is coded as TPVUI BGSJDB, what is the code for Australia? Look carefully. We will understand that the code has one alphabet in advance of the letter. Instead of S, we have T. Instead of O, we have P. Instead of U, we have V, etc. Applying the same logic, Australia can be coded as A plus 1, which is B, U plus 1, which is V, S plus 1, which is T, etc. So the code would be option 2. What are the things that we learned from the thoughts and examples? There is no specific method for coding. The coding can be logical, numerical, mathematical, Boolean, or for that matter, any other logic. It is up to the student to decode the logic and to get to the answer. For this, there should not be any preconceived biases in the mind. It should be as open as it can get. It is beneficial for the students to have seen as many possibilities as possible before the test so that some logic or the other will strike immediately. So make sure that you would have done enough number of questions before the real examination. That should make you ready to face all challenges in this set of questions. One thing that must be understood is that these are impulse questions. Impulse questions means those set of questions where the logic strikes you immediately or it does not strike you at all. So spend a maximum of a minute on any question of this kind. If the logic strikes, well and good. Otherwise, please move on to the next question. Not getting an answer to these questions should not be taken into the ego as an inability, because a question to which you could not get the answer to immediately may not be solved by you for a whole day, but may be solved very fast the next day. So it is a matter of striking or not. That's all. Now let us look at the most common mistakes that test takers make while attempting coding decoding questions so that you can be cautious about those. The most common mistake is to have a set mind that the question will be based on alphabetical numbers. Please do understand that any logic is possible, and so keep an open mind towards such questions. As we saw in the alphabetical order question, there can be other possibilities than the alphabetic numbers. Another mistake is reading the options carelessly. The choices will be very close, and unless you read those carefully, you are bound to make mistakes. In aptitude tests, you should not be spending a lot of time on any one question. These are impulse questions. So, as mentioned earlier, leave the question after a minute if you are not making any progress. All the best.